Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking for you tonight.
सब जगह अदानी 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 अदानी।
इस सदन का सदस्य होने के नाते जो भी बातें आप करेंगे गंभीरता से आप बात करेंगे।
Fireworks in Parliament as Rahul Gandhi questions the Prime Minister and the government over the Adani controversy. Union Law Minister Kiran Rijiju accuses Gandhi of levelling wild allegations. Adani Group stocks recover some lost ground after getting battered for the last few days. Adani Ports promises to cut debt by 5,000 crore rupees, scales back its capex plan. Ambuja Cement beats estimates in Q3. Adani Group entities say they are considering appointing independent agencies to look into compliance issues and related party transactions. More than 5,000 people dead across Turkey and Syria after multiple earthquakes devastated the region in the last 24 hours. Turkey has declared a state of emergency for 3 months. Aftershocks and freezing temperature hamper rescue efforts. More than 200 loan and betting apps face an uncertain future over alleged links to China. Several apps and websites, including LazyPay, Kish, India Bulls Home Loans, Credit B and Buddy Loan, face a potential ban. Sources say select fintech lenders met government officials today. Insurance sector urges the Finance Ministry to hike the threshold for taxing life insurance premiums from 5 lakh per annum to 10 lakh. The industry says retirement savings will be impacted otherwise. On the eve of the monetary policy, a CNBC-TV18 poll shows 70% of market participants expect a 25 basis point rate hike. However, there is unanimity in the street, with 100% expecting the hike in February to be the last hike this cycle. A one-time provision for license fee dents Bharti Airtel's profits in Q3. Revenue growth on target. Average revenue per user at 193 rupees. Hero Moto largely meets estimates with a 6% profit growth, even as margins contract by 70 basis points compared to the last year. SoftBank reports a quarterly loss of nearly $6 billion. The Vision Fund, which invests in tech companies, accounts for most of the losses. Founder Masayoshi Son was not present for the earnings presentation for the first time in the company's history. After Microsoft-backed ChatGPT makes a splash, Google CEO Sundar Pichai issues a rallying cry to employees on artificial intelligence. Calls for all hands on deck as Google gears up to release the ChatGPT competitor. It's called Bard. The president of international development at Coca-Cola expects strong growth in India this upcoming summer as the momentum continues. Adds the company is navigating inflation through differentiated pack sizes. Well, let's start with the day's look at the market action. Dalal Street recovering from intraday lows to end with minor cuts. We saw the Nifty and the Sensex down 0.25%, but banks did outperform today, and the bank index ended 0.25% in the green. Meanwhile, mid-caps ended the day flat with a slight negative bias. Now, the Adani Group stocks did recover some of their lost ground today. 6 of the group's 10 listed entities ended in the green after having been battered over the past several days. Since the Hindenburg report, which made allegations against the Adani Group, the group's market capitalization has eroded by 9.3 lakh crore rupees. Meanwhile, Ambuja Cements reported its Q3 earnings, beating estimates on all fronts. Profits up 46% on a year-on-year basis. Margins were flat. However, Adani Ports reported disappointing Q3 numbers. The company failed to beat estimates in the third quarter. Net profit fell 16%. In its earnings report, Adani Group has responded to Hindenburg's allegations, saying, and I quote, "To uphold the principles of good corporate governance, the management of Adani Group entities are evaluating an independent assessment, bases the requisite corporate approvals to look into the issues and compliance of applicable laws and regulations, transaction-specific issues, etc." Adani Ports is also now scaling down on its expansion plans. It has said that cash generated through operations in the next fiscal will be used to repay loans worth 5,000 crore rupees. Remember, just yesterday, the Adani Group prepaid loans worth over $1 billion in a bid to allay concerns of investors.
Targeting EBITDA of rupees 14,500 to 15,000 crores and expects the net debt to EBITDA ratio declining to 2.5x by March 24. This is after factoring a capex of rupees 4,000 to 4,500 crores and loan repayment of rupees 5,000 crores.
Meanwhile, the Finance Ministry, in a written reply to Parliament, stated that LIC's exposure to the Adani Group accounts for 0.9% of the life insurer's assets under management at book value. The ministry said that LIC's total holding in Adani Group stood at over 35,917 crores. Staying with the Adani Group, my colleague Abhishek Kothari has compiled a list of lenders and their exposure to the Adani Group companies. He joins us now. Abhishek, take us through what the data tells us in terms of the exposure of the banking sector to the Adani Group and perhaps some non-banks as well.
Well, lenders, that is banks and NBFCs, have an exposure to Adani Group. We know the details of 6 lenders as they have given out details either in their presentation or post the results as well in the con calls. So 6 lenders have a total exposure of about 59,751 crore to the Adani Group, which forms about 0.96% of their overall loans. Amount-wise, the highest exposure is of State Bank of India, which is about 27,000 crore. However, this forms around 0.88% of their loans. So percentage-wise, that is percentage to loan, the highest exposure is of REC, that is Rural Electrification Corporation, which is about 1.7% of the loans, followed by IndusInd Bank and Axis Bank as per Macquarie note. So the details are as follows. Bank of Baroda has an exposure of 5,380 crores, which forms about 0.6% of their loans. PNB has an exposure of about 7,000 crore, forming about 0.8% of their loans. State Bank of India, 27,000 crore, forming about 0.88% of their loans. Axis Bank, a little more than 9,200 crores, which forms about 1.21% of their loans. IndusInd Bank has an exposure of 4,150 crores, which forms a little over 1.5% of their loans. And last but not the least, REC, that has an exposure of 7,000 crore, which forms about 1.7% of their overall loans. Back to you.
Well, that is the exposure of some banks to the Adani Group. Now, the Adani controversy has caused fireworks in Parliament, with Rahul Gandhi questioning the Prime Minister and the government. The BJP hit back, with Union Law Minister accusing Rahul Gandhi of making wild allegations.
तो मेरा सवाल प्रधानमंत्री जी से, और सिंपल सवाल है, प्रधानमंत्री जी, आपके फॉरेन ट्रिप्स पे अदानी जी और आप कितनी बार एक साथ गए? Adani ji, how many times did you travel together with Adani ji? How many times did Adani ji join you later on a visit? How many times did Adani ji travel to a country immediately after you did? And in how many of these countries after you visited did Adani ji get a contract?
राहुल जी, अभी आप सीनियर एमपी हो गए हैं, आप एक सीनियर एमपी हो चुके हैं। हम लोग एक्सपेक्ट करते हैं कि इस सदन का सदस्य होने के नाते जो भी बातें आप करेंगे, गंभीरता से आप बात करेंगे। बाहर आप जो भी भाषण देते हैं, हम लोग उसको रोक नहीं सकते हैं। इस सदन के अंदर में जो भी बात कही जाती है, पूरा गंभीरता के साथ, प्रमाण के साथ कहे जाना चाहिए। ये परंपरा है।
Well, fireworks there in Parliament. All eyes will be on Prime Minister Modi for his reply. Now, in Earnings Corner, Bharti Airtel reporting a largely steady Q3, revenue growth in line with estimates. However, profits have missed expectations owing to a one-time loss of 637 crore rupees on the account of a provision for license fee. The average revenue per user has grown to 193 rupees. Remember, Sunil Mittal has been talking about an ARPU of 200, so edging closer to that. Hero MotoCorp has also reported Q3 numbers in line with expectations. Revenues and profits ahead of estimates. Margins contracted by 70 basis points on an annual basis, but at 11.5% margins, also largely in line with estimates. Hero Motors board has approved an interim dividend of 65 rupees per share for the current financial year. In global earnings, Japanese investor SoftBank continued to post losses, reporting a nearly $6 billion of loss in the December quarter, led by the Visions Fund and the Latin America Fund. Although this number is less than the $10 billion of loss posted in the previous quarter, this is the 4th straight quarter in which SoftBank Group has lost money. Important to note that SoftBank's founder Masayoshi Son skipped the earnings call, this for the first time in the company's history. Oil major BP reporting record annual profits, more than doubling last year's total. This courtesy soaring fuel prices and the Russia-Ukraine war. BP saw an underlying replacement cost profit at close to $28 billion, for 2022 versus $13 billion the previous year. For Q4, the firm saw a net profit at $4.8 billion. That's ahead of analyst expectations. BP's also announced a share buyback of $2.7 billion and boosted its dividend by 10%. Now, several digital lending apps are staring at a potential ban. Sources in the IT ministry tell us that 232 betting and loan apps have been banned on the basis of inputs from central government agencies. But the government, at this point in time, is in conversation with tech companies to try and understand their legitimate concerns. Ashmit joins us now with more details. So, Ashmit, what is the basis for this government's action, and what is the redressal, if any, available to the fintechs that feel that they should not be part of this ban list?
Well, there are three broad aspects as far as this story is concerned. Number one, just as we have been reporting, the MHA shared some inputs with Ministry of Electronics and IT, basis which MeitY acted under Section 69A of the IT Act. We'll come back to that provision. And under this provision, they issued takedown orders to the intermediary, which in this case happens to be Google. Google, of course, on its part is seeking to restrict access to a lot of these consumers. The grounds, of course, have been twin. Number one, any Chinese linkage. The second is complaints coming in from consumer forums and consumers with respect to mis-selling, mistreatment, and that has been a core concern as far as the government is concerned. That's part one of the story. The second is with respect to scope. Now, we understand that the scope of the operation here, the takedown orders, is quite wide. We have been reporting that mainstream players such as LazyPay and Kisht are getting affected, but the scope could be much wider. We, in fact, reached out to very many sources. We, in fact, even managed an access to a part of that list, and what we've learned is that even players such as Indiabulls Home Loans, Ola's Avail Finance, M-Pocket, CreditBee, FairCent, LiveCash, these are significant players with large amounts of population in terms of consumers as well as employees that could stand to get affected as far as these takedown orders are concerned, which is what brings us to part three. What about the way forward? Now, we understand that a lot of these fintech players have sought to establish communication with the Ministry of Electronics and IT. Not a lot of headway there. What we're also being told is that under 69A, the provision under which this takedown order has been issued, there's not a lot of wiggle room with respect to review, and that is a core cause of concern. So a lot of information being shared by these fintech players. We have to see how the Ministry of Electronics and IT chooses to respond to these concerns coming in from the startup ecosystem.
We have not received any notice or communication from the government as yet, and we are also seeking clarification, having heard from the sources. At this point in time, there is absolutely no impact on our operations. Right now, what we're trying to do is just engage with the government. Our team is there in Delhi right now, meeting with the MeitY officials to understand what is their concern and how we can address them. We are also hoping more clarity is something we get very, very soon, so that this, uncertainty around this whole matter gets resolved on its own.
The fintech lending companies are not the entire list. There are probably many others out there. Government understands this. I think they will probably need clarifications from everyone, whoever actually gets pulled down. At least what we understand right now is that the current operation, the current app usage will not get impacted. It's probably just the new downloads. So everybody will go and maybe they will have to present what the documentation is to ensure that, whatever other concerns that the government has raised are clarified. So I think we will be back to normal very soon.
Well, uncertainty there for a lot of fintech players. But staying with fintech companies, PhonePe users can now make payments to foreign merchants via UPI. The payment company announced its new feature that allows Indian users traveling abroad to instantly pay foreign merchants using UPI. It will be first introduced in the UAE, Singapore, Mauritius, Nepal and Bhutan. Further expansion will happen after the NPCI rolls out UPI internationally in more countries. Meanwhile, Zomato CEO Deepinder Goyal congratulating Paytm founder Vijay Shekhar Sharma after the company's shares rallied in trade on the back of its December earnings. Paytm's EBITDA improved to 31 crores during the third quarter. Zomato chief Goyal tweeted, and I quote, "Congratulations Vijay Shekhar Sharma and Paytm on becoming profitable. Sorry a bit late to the party. Was busy working on our profitability. All eyes now on Zomato to deliver that." Now, the insurance industry has urged the Finance Ministry to hike the threshold for taxing life insurance premiums from 5 lakh per annum to 10 lakh. The industry feels that retirement savings would be impacted severely otherwise. Yash joins us now with more. Yash, what exactly is the industry asking the government to do?
Well, remember in a budget speech, the finance minister announced taxing large ticket size savings life insurance policies where the annual premium is over 5 lakhs for an individual. Now, this particular announcement has raised some concerns for the insurance sector where some players have large exposure to these big ticket size insurance policies. What we've been given to understand from our sources is that the insurance industry met the finance minister today with its own representation in terms of how the 5 lakhs limit, the threshold which the government has set, can be raised to 10 lakhs rupees so that the impact of this particular move, of this announcement, can be minimized on the life insurance industry. What we've been given to understand from our sources is that as far as a rough estimation of the size of this kind of book is concerned, it comes to about 10% of the total non-ULIP book for the industry, which itself is large, and hence these concerns have been presented before the finance minister. We need to see how the government really takes this forward and if there is any change in what the government has announced in the budget session.
Yash, many thanks. Now, from one exclusive to another, Coca-Cola's President of International Development, Henrik Broad, is upbeat on the company's growth prospects in India. He believes the company's plans for 2023 look solid and he expects a good year going ahead. He also believes that the company is navigating inflation through differentiated pack sizes. Take a look.
We have recently also developed a product here locally under the Maza brand. That is a brand that has been developed locally, and the portfolio also actually has been developed by the global R&D team, but with local insights. The plans for 2023 are very bold, and we believe that we're going to have a good year. And when we look at the inflationary markets, right, and today in the world, it's actually some phenomenon that we see in all over the world. We have also the experience of being a global company on how to navigate that in a very sustainable way. So the way that we're doing this, and we're doing in India as well, is to amplify the portfolio. We have now more packaging size options, more broader portfolio that allows us to play on the affordability choices.
And you can catch more on Coca-Cola's India strategy right here on CNBC-TV18. Moving on, the RBI Monetary Policy Committee, headed by RBI Shakti Kanta Das, has commenced. The decision of the meeting will be announced tomorrow. According to a CNBC-TV18 poll, a majority expect the committee to hike rates by 25 basis points. Ritu joins us now with more. Ritu.
Well, with inflation showing some signs of softening and the US Fed also moderating its pace of hikes, the majority of respondents to our poll expect the MPC to settle for a smaller 25 basis point rate hike this time, with a third of the respondents expecting a status quo. But more importantly, it looks like we're nearing the end of the rate hike cycle, with all respondents expecting no more hikes after February. However, it could be too early to start expecting RBI to start cutting rates, but further rate hikes can be ruled out, which brings us to the peak repo rate. 90% expect the peak repo rate in this cycle to be at 6.5%. Now, on the inflation front, with December CPI cooling off and staying within the target range, 80% of our respondents expect RBI to lower the forecast of 6.7% for this fiscal by 10 to 20 basis points. No change is expected in the growth forecast for the financial year at 6.8%. Now, when it comes to stance, though, experts are divided whether RBI should change it to neutral or persist with withdrawal of accommodation. Here, 40% of the respondents said they don't expect any change, 20% expect some tweaking in the wording of the stance, but 40% are expecting a shift in the stance to neutral. Now, in terms of other things the markets will watch out for, some are expecting a soft signal about a pause in hikes come April in the governor's statement this time. And also, as has been the case in the last few policies, a continuing dissent on the policy action within the MPC is also something that the markets will keep an eye out for.
Ritu, appreciate you joining us. We will head into a break, but when we return after Microsoft backed Chat GPT makes a splash, Google decides to fight back. Well, the top global story: rescue operations underway in freezing conditions for the second day as the death toll in Turkey and Syria crosses 5,000. The list of fatalities expected to rise further as per the World Health Organization. About 23 million, including 1.4 million children, are likely to be impacted by the earthquake and its aftershocks that have reduced hundreds of buildings to rubble. Kiran Khatri reports on the aftermath of the devastating earthquakes.
Residents of Turkey and Syria were woken up by a 7.8 magnitude earthquake early Monday morning. Hours later, another earthquake of 7.5 magnitude struck the region, affecting search and rescue operations. The powerful quakes have claimed the lives of thousands, and the death toll is expected to go up further as smaller earthquakes and aftershocks continue. Tens of thousands of people are injured or have been rendered homeless.
Almost 6,000 buildings was collapsed, and 3 airports in the region are damaged. Considering the dimension of the devastation and the size of the affected region, it is really not easy to fight.
Videos that surfaced on social media showed entire apartment blocks turning into rubble. Plumes of smoke billowed from flattened building in Turkey's Hatay as rescue workers climbed over the structures looking for survivors.
These earthquakes didn't just come in a vacuum. There weren't just the two of them. They also had the aftershocks. So the result of that has been that most people in these areas are actually afraid to go back inside the buildings. You've got a lot of people who had to sleep outside, had to sleep in their cars, were afraid to go back inside their homes just for fear that another earthquake or another tremor would unlock the same kind of damage that we've seen elsewhere.
The 2,000-year-old Gaziantep castle, built by the Roman Empire, also succumbed to the deadly quakes, with many of its walls collapsing. In Syria, the earthquakes added new devastation to the country that has endured more than a decade of civil war. Bad weather is also hampering rescue efforts there. Several of Syria's archaeological sites, including a famed citadel in Aleppo, have been damaged. Many countries, including India, South Korea, China, and the US, have offered to assist rescue efforts in Turkey and Syria. India has sent IAF flights with NDRF personnel, specially trained dog squads, medicines, drilling machines, and other relief equipment to Turkey's Adana. An Agra-based Army Field Hospital dispatched an 89-member medical team and equipment capable of setting up a 30-bed hospital. The Turkish ambassador thanked India for the aid. He said, and I quote, "A friend in need is a friend indeed." In Mumbai, Kiran Khatri.
Well, devastating scenes there in Turkey. Back home in national headlines, Victoria Gauri was sworn in as the additional judge at the Madras High Court today. She took oath as the Supreme Court continued to hear petitions challenging her elevation, which were later dismissed. Petitioner had urged that Gauri's alleged hate speeches against minorities on previous occasions made her unfit to hold the office of a judge. The court said it would not go into issues of suitability after the collegium had decided on the appointment. The Supreme Court has refused to grant relief to bike aggregator Rapido after the Maharashtra government's ban. I has asked them to approach the Bombay High Court instead. Rapido, in its statement, has asked the state government to use this opportunity to take a holistic view on the matter. Now, Google has unveiled an experimental conversation AI service. It's called Bard, as the company races to catch up with chatbot ChatGPT from Microsoft-backed firm OpenAI. The company CEO Sundar Pichai says that the service will initially be opened up to trusted testers before making it more widely available to the public in the coming weeks. Rima is standing by with the details of what Google is all set to do. Rima.
Thanks so much for that. Well, ChatGPT has a new competitor. It's called Bard, and it's by Google. Google CEO Sundar Pichai announced the project in a blog post yesterday post market hours, describing the tool as an experimental conversational AI service that will answer user queries and take part in conversations. Now, what is it that Bard can do? A screenshot from the Google blog post shows users asking Bard queries like, how do you plan a baby shower? Can you compare it to Oscar-nominated movies? You get some lunch ideas based on the list of ingredients which are available in your fridge. Well, as of now, Bard is only available to a group of tested advisors, but it will be made available to the public more freely in the subsequent weeks. Another question that I'm sure all of you have is, how is ChatGPT potentially different from Bard? Remember, right now, we know very little about Bard and what it can do, but some things that I've picked up, after speaking to people is that perhaps Bard will be able to have a conversation based on more recent events. So ChatGPT's information draws from the internet based on data as of 2021. But Sundar Pichai says Bard draws on information from the web to provide fresh, high-quality responses. So here the word is fresh. So the expectation is, or the possibility is, that Bard can provide information which takes into account more recent events. And this is a seminal development for Google, because remember, it has been facing pressure from investors and employees to compete with ChatGPT. ChatGPT became public towards the end of last year, and it took the world by surprise, and many were even questioning the possible demise of the search engine, just purely Google search. So it was incumbent on Google to come out with a response, to come out with a competitor, and here they have. It's called Bard, and it is a direct competitor to ChatGPT. Right now, they're very low on details, but I guess once more those trusted testers start using it, we will get more greater clarity.
Yes, Rima, the AI battle has begun. ChatGPT, will Bard really be able to take it on is the big question. It has the might of Google. ChatGPT, of course, has the might of Microsoft behind it. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. Thanks very much for watching. The news continues here on CNBC-TV18.
नमस्ते बेटे।